All right. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. It's just us women chatting away. We are so excited. Welcome, welcome, welcome to hashtag Voters Make a Difference. Thank you all so much for joining us. You could be anywhere and you chose to check in with us. So many thanks for that. What I'm doing is going ahead and trying to get my watch party started. And I invite you to do the same. Right now is a great time to get your watch party started using the hashtag Voters Make a Difference. I pray that you are safe and warm and fed and loved wherever you are at right now. My name is Stephenie Smith. I am co-founder and managing partner of Sophic Solutions, which is based here in Kansas City, Missouri, but we serve all over the country. And we're a change management solution firm that really helps organizations think through change and management through an equity lens. And so I'm excited to be here. And I think a question that is important for all of us to find our own answer to is, why is it important to vote? So I'll share with you as everybody is kind of thinking about it for themselves. For me, it is always important to not only call out racism, but also do the work of dismantling racism and the structural systems and barriers of oppression that continue to perpetuate the same outcomes. And so I know that voting is a really great vehicle of change, or an opportunity for us to make those change in these respective systems. So that's why it is important to me to vote. So as you are viewing and listening and figuring out for yourself, we have three other women who are here to impart knowledge, but also share. And so throughout this whole time, please share your comments in the chat box. And once again, share it with your community so we can make sure that we spread the word about the importance of voting. And so with that, as you know, for everybody that you see on screen, there's always a host of people that you won't see. And so we want to take some time to shout out those friends before we get into the introductions. Shout out to Edgar. Thank you so much, in the Latinx Education Collaborative, for all of your support and even hosting us on this platform right now. Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet, which you're going to hear more about that. Just Systems, Missouri Medicaid expansion. I'll shout out to Cecilia, and Cecilia's going to talk about all these a little bit more. Dr. Tyon Lee with Metropolitan Community College. The Heartland Black Chamber is a really great partner. Divas Discuss, which Phoenix will talk about that a little bit more. The REI community. There are so many of us out there all throughout the world. And then also Shari Jones and Yolanda Walden. So thank you all, and shout out to each of you. But I want to get into this young lady right here. Hey, Phoenix.
Hey, Phoenix.
So yeah, my name is Pheonix Smith. I am a senior at Oak Park High School. I am also the founder of Divas Discuss, which is a teen organization for young women, just to fellowship and network in the KC metro area. I will also be attending the Olympics Howard University next year. So we'll do that. Yes. And then piggyback off what my mom said about voting, I am a first-time voter this year. This year. Yes. And I feel like voting is important because I call myself a change agent, and the only way to make that change possible is by taking action. And voting would be taking action. So I feel like all people should vote, including first-time voters. It's a good way to jump in and be an advocate for your community and for the world.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm just so proud. This is just a point of privilege. This is my daughter, and I'm so proud of her. So thank you so much for saying yes.
Thank you. No problem.
And thank you, ladies, for saying yes. So real quick to our viewers, before we tell you more about Michelle and Cecilia, this is 30 minutes. We're going to be 30 minutes right here on this platform on Facebook. So please join us, engage, and share your thoughts. And then join us over on Twitter. We have an amazing chat with Dr. Tyon Lee, and Cecilia is going to be joining us. So get on Twitter chat, and so that you can continue and we can keep this conversation going.
Okay, so before we hop into the discussion, I'd love to introduce these young ladies on the screen with you. Both of these women have been very essential in my life over the past couple years. Miss Cecilia and I met in Anytown.
Hey, I can't hear. Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
I can't hear you.
Give us a minute.
Okay, so Miss Cecilia and I met at Anytown KC last summer, where she demonstrated her advocacy work and specialty in diversity and inclusion. Miss Cecilia-Belser-Patton is the principal and culture curator
there you go.
at Just Systems. You may have seen her representing other orgs because she is indeed a citywide health and racial advocate. I also had the pleasure of interning under Miss Michelle last summer with her organization, Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet. Miss Michelle Wiley is also the founder and president of the Griot Group. She specializes in strategic communications, political outreach, and advocacy. Fun fact, she organized the Midwest campaign for Bernie Sanders in 2016. So thank you to these ladies for joining us.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Look, I'm looking at Cecilia. Can you hear us, Cecilia? Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to pull Cecilia to see if we can get that. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. And shout out to Cecilia. We're going to see if we can. Yes, we're going to see if we can. Because we need to hear what Cecilia has to say. But Michelle, why don't you kick us off? We know there's so much happening right now. We, of course, are dealing with the pandemic and the effects. But we also know there's been a whole lot of other things that have continuously affected our community. So can you talk about some key issues that we should be aware of in this 2020 season?
Yeah, of course, we can't ignore the impact that COVID has had across the nation, but particularly on Black communities, the contracting rates, the mortality rates, the impact on job loss and housing loss and getting behind on bills and not having access to the resources kicked down from the federal government or even local governments. The impact has been devastating, to say the least. And it really highlights an adage that some of y'all may have heard in the past, that when certain populations, or the way it goes is when white people get the cold, Black people get pneumonia. And I think that's what you're experiencing here with COVID-19. That has really come to bear. But in light of a devastating pandemic, we still have to be diligent about upcoming elections because they have the same opportunity to be just as devastating if we don't get the right people in office to represent us, or if we're not able to have our voices heard on key issues at the local, state, and federal levels.
Absolutely. This would be a time that we would ask Cecilia to expound. So when she comes back, we definitely want to hear. But in the meanwhile, can you talk about, I know one of the big things that many people, I remember in last year's or the last presidential election, there was a lot of talk about, well, my candidate didn't make it, or my issue's not on the ballot. And so can you talk about the importance of staying committed and staying engaged in your respective voting elections, even if it's not your issue or your candidate?
Yeah, I think you saw that in 2016, but you're seeing that this year also with Democratic candidates. People always point to Senator Sanders supporters. They're very loyal supporters and have, been quoted as saying that, they won't vote or they'll vote for a third-party candidate if their candidate is on the ballot. But you could say the same for Biden supporters on some level. And even when we talk about issues, there were issues that were raised in the more recent presidential elections, and that entered in the discussion that hadn't before in strong ways. Reparations is the one that comes to mind. I can't think of any past presidential election where, reparations was so prominent. And for a lot of Black voters, well, I won't say a lot of Black voters, but for some Black voters, that single issue is enough to keep them at home if they don't have candidates that are willing to carry the water on that. And I would just say that politics is bigger than one candidate or one issue. There's one candidate is never going to be 100% aligned with all of your issues for the most part. B, they in their capacity by themselves, if they get into office, are not able to carry the water on a single issue by themselves. They have to do it in concert with other legislators, depending on what office they run for, and or you have checks and balances between different branches that won't allow them to run single issues by themselves. So we got to think beyond the one person, right? The one person or the one issue isn't going to get it done. We've got to think big picture, and we got to really redefine what a win is for us. And the win for Black people should be the agenda. Who is going to carry the water on my agenda, and how do I get my agenda passed? And my agenda is not held in one elected official. It's just not. So we need to just be more broader in our thinking and how we activate strategically in politics, because that's all politics is. It is the process by which we decide how resources and power is allocated and used. Who has the power? Who is doing the allocating? And in order for us to benefit from politics, we need to figure out how we insert ourselves in those processes so we can get some of that power, and so that we can be in the decision-making seats to say how that power and those resources are allocated.
Thank you for that. I love what you said about we've got to redefine what a win is. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa.
And welcome. Cecilia, can you hear us live?
Please say yes.
Can you hear us?
I can hear Michelle, but I cannot hear Steve.
We're going to work this out then.
That's right. So what we want Cecilia to answer is the same thing. So what are some important issues that are going on in 2020 that we need to be aware of?
Yes, Cecilia, we were talking about issues in 2020. What are your big issues that people need to be paying attention to?
Thank you, you all. Thank you for adjusting, accommodating, and being flexible, taking care of us, sister. I appreciate you.
That's what Black women do. We do what we
gotta
do.
That's what Black women do, right?
They do.
So the issues that I think that we especially have to be concerned about here in Missouri during 2020, we have two. We have our governor's race that's coming up in August, right? And really pushing forward and making sure that we are present. Oftentimes, especially in our communities, we don't tend to vote in those elections, and we need to. We need to vote in every election so that we can make our voices heard and our presence heard. As Michelle was just saying, you know, politics is a dance. It's a negotiation of your worth and your power and your voice. Even if your candidate is not the one that is chosen, you still chose to dance. You chose to show up and be present. And I think we also have to do that when it comes to Medicaid expansion in our state. There are 36 other states that have Medicaid expansion in their state, and African-American communities and other marginalized communities, Latinx communities, are doing so much more better there because they do at least have a means in which to maintain their health and their wellness and their wholeness. And so we are wanting that same thing for Missourians. We have been trying to get Medicaid expanded in our state for over 10 years, and we will continue. We have gathered over 300,000 signatures statewide in a nonpartisan way. This is not a partisan issue. It is not a Republican or Democratic issue. It is not a poor or a wealthy issue. It is a humanity issue, and it's an economic issue. We will be bringing $1.7 billion back to our state. We hope that rural hospitals that have been closed since 2014, there are over 10 of them, that those communities will be able to be recharged, re-energized, and re-employed and better taken care of. And we want that same thing for us here in Kansas City and in our sister city, St. Louis, as well. We see with COVID-19 and the coronavirus how we're being affected with health disparities. We are always affected in that way. I will echo Michelle again. If white folks have a cold, then we have pneumonia and, no pun intended, the flu right now, right? So how do we do the things and make sure that we show up and vote in our self-interest, in our shared values, so that we can take care of ourselves?
I always tell people I work on political campaigns, and when we say that you don't have a voice when you don't vote, it is almost literal. Campaigns base who they reach out to and how much money they spend and how much resources they spend on actual voters to educate them about their issue and to persuade them to go vote based on your voting record. If you don't have a voting record that we can, look up that shows that you're a regular voter, we won't reach out to you. then
That's right.
if we're not reaching out to you, the campaigns, opposition, pro or against, if they don't know you exist, they can't reach out to you. They don't make an effort to court you, and you deserve to be courted on the issues that are going to impact you. Whether you vote or not, decisions are going to be made on your behalf.
That's right.
It is best that you have a say in those decisions and understand that voting is just the start. It's not where it is.
Go ahead.
So
Trying to get in there.
Yes.
So, yeah, thank you, ladies. We're just gonna take a pause right now just to thank the viewers, the 60 viewers for tuning in right now. We ask that you engage with us, ask any questions, because this is what we're here for. So
What's going on with my phone?
so move on with the conversation. Are there any questions?
Nope. So just continue or begin to drop your questions in here if you have anything. We're also going to have, I know Yolanda will be dropping some important links in the chat as well, because that is important too. There's a ton of resources for each one of us to be able to do the work ourselves, because it does take some energy on our part. And so Michelle and Cecilia, you've talked about some issues that you all see. And I love, Michelle, you, like I said, you talked about we have to define what a win is. And we have to remember that our vote is our voice. And so being able to cast your ballot it gives you the opportunity to be able to say what is important to you, and to be courted, because we do want to be courted. We want people to engage us because they know that our voice matters. And so with that, Pheonix, what other questions do you have?
So for Ms. Cecilia, why is it important for everyone to care about Medicaid? And Ms. Michelle, would you like to translate that to her?
So
I can't hear it all.
Cecilia,
Not
why
even
is
Michelle
it important
anymore.
for folks to care about Medicaid
Nothing.
expansion?
Okay, so Cecilia's saying that she can't hear from you either. So
okay.
if you want to take that question and or let us know how individuals can even go about in preparing to vote. So how can we review ballots? How can we figure out more about the information that's happening?
Yeah, I think Medicaid expansion is important because when we look at what's going on with COVID and the ability to get access to quality health care and to not have to, on some level, choose between going to work or paying bills or all of the daily things you have to choose from and getting your health care needs met, it becomes important. It's important because also, by it being a ballot initiative, it is truly a say of the people. We will be hearing from the people of Missouri directly whether they think that this is a measure that should be passed or not. So it's probably one of the purest forms of letting your voice and vote be heard. It is indicative of campaigning overall, and that there's a lot of resources being expended to hear the voices of Missourians on either side. And so if for nothing else, we need to know where people stand on this issue so that legislators are clear on what it is voters really want. Because at this point, we are utilizing a process that allows us to have our voices heard directly. And I think when you're thinking about how you should vote on items or what's going to be on the ballot or what you should be thinking about, it feels complex. And I personally think that on some level that's by design. I think that systems in which we don't want people to have power have historically been entrenched in information and difficulty accessing information. There's a reason why slaveholders did not want slaves to learn how to read. And so when I hear that politics is too complex or it's too difficult to understand, I understand that notion. It is. And it's usually not until a person is directly impacted by policy and government that they start to pay attention and engage. But we've got to be diligent and proactive. We come from ancestry and line and bloodline of people who were always proactive and figured it out. When we didn't know how to read, we weren't allowed to learn how. We found ways around that.
Absolutely.
If our ancestors could figure out how to read and follow Northern Stars, to get to freedom, we can figure out politics.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying, in the age of Google,
absolutely,
we can figure out politics. So some shortcuts include looking at the Secretary of State's website before an election, your local election board. So it could be your county election board or your city election board. They often have the ballot pre-printed so that you know exactly what your ballot will look like and what will be up for you to vote on. If you have questions, you can always, there are a lot of news sources, whether it be, it could be the newspaper, it could be CNN, it could be Politico. There are people usually in your circles who are very attuned to what's going on. Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet. We always, when there's an election coming up here locally in Kansas or Missouri, we always go over what's on the ballot and what you're being asked to vote on. We don't tell you how to vote, but we tell you what to expect and what it could mean for you if you vote yes or no, yay or nay, up or down. So I think we just got to be diligent.
Let us jump in real quick. Cecilia, we want to hear from you, but I also want to bring up, we have Robin who has asked, is there any push in Missouri for early voting, and what impact, if any, will this have on communities of color? Can you talk about that?
I can.
Yeah,
there actually is a push in Missouri for voter suppression. If we really want to be honest about that, when we have the supermajority legislators that we have, one of the first things that people in power try to do is suppress the vote. We were able to see that in 2018 in communities near us in Kansas, where a week before, rural voters who did not have access to transportation were supposed to vote. I don't remember the name of the town, but I know that they actually moved the polling place so that people could not get to the polling. And there were celebrities that came in and then drove them. I think Melissa Etheridge came in and rented out buses to drive people, because that is one of the tools of supremacy, is suppressing votes. And so we know that they're not wanting early voting. They're not wanting mail-in ballots. They're not wanting anything that will move communities of color and other marginalized communities to be able to vote with ease. So what we have to make sure that we do is stay abreast of all of these situations, right? We have to really, as much as we will do in other ways in which we're concerned about ourselves, we stay informed in the time of the internet, in the time of Google, when we can just do that at the touch of a finger. We should. Because as Michelle was saying a few questions ago, when she was talking about voting really is us being deciding that we want to be present for ourselves, and monies and funds and resources are allocated around that. Surely, if we don't vote, we might as well be casting a vote for the person that we don't want to win, right? If we say, oh, I'm just going to sit this out, I'm not going to do that, then you're voting for the person that you don't think is adequate to be in office. And we've seen that in the last cycle of elections. And so,
well, you're seeing that now, Cecilia. So they recently moved up the local election for the additional, I think it was a tax that was supposed to be on the ballot in April. That election has been moved to June, but the registration deadline has not moved. So if you can register to vote in this election by March, whatever that March deadline is, you won't be able to decide whether a tax is imposed on you to pay for additional supplies for the firefighters in June. So there's a lawsuit right now in the courts to push legislators and policymakers to change that and to make sure that those deadlines align, since they're being moved. So, and we say voter suppression, but it's really the role in the work of lawmakers to create barriers, right? We are strong people. We can't be suppressed. We can't be killed off. We can't be stopped, but they create barriers. And what you're seeing is legislators and policymakers taking advantage of a pandemic to play politics. And putting politics over the people.
Absolutely. We saw that right in Wisconsin. Absolutely. Sorry, Michelle. We saw that right in Wisconsin when legislators and electeds were more concerned about getting their way than they were about their constituents and their citizens' health.
Yeah.
And it backfired. Right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So ladies, we're 7 minutes before we transition from.
So we're about to rapid fire. Is that what this is? Rapid fire.
Pheonix, why don't you talk to our viewers about some things that you need for them to do?
So we want the viewers to talk back to us. So do you plan on voting in the next election? If you do, please say yes in the chat box. And if not, no. We want as much honest feedback as we can get, as well as we want to know if this discussion has been helpful to you. If you agree, please type agree in the chat. If not, disagree, and we will work on better ways to connect with you and for you to get better information. Also, for first-time voters as myself, I just wanted to share the voting dates in Missouri. The upcoming dates are June 2nd, August 4th, and November 3rd. November 3rd is for the presidential. June 2nd is for Missouri, like statewide voting, for like the taxes, like Michelle just mentioned.
Well, that's true. And we know that for Kansas City, those are the days. Thank you, Phoenix, for that. But if you are not in Kansas City, Missouri, or in Missouri for that matter, you can go to your local or to your state Secretary of State page. And I know that information is being dropped into the Facebook chat as well. And that way, go on there. Not only can you find all of your upcoming dates, but you can also see your deadlines for when is your deadline for mail-in or when is your deadline for registration, which is extremely important. So that can be found at your respective Secretary of State's page, and it'll be all right there for you. As we have 5 minutes left, ladies, I want to give you both an opportunity to share some thoughts. We still haven't talked about Crown Act, so Michelle, I need you to make sure you work that in there.
Okay.
So give us some closing thoughts and wrap in Crown Act, and then Cecilia, we want to hear from you, and then Phoenix will close us out.
Yeah, so the Crown Act is an act that has been worked across the nation to essentially make it illegal to discriminate against folks based on their hairstyle. The Crown Act, creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, has been passed in a number of states and was introduced in Kansas and Missouri before COVID-19 kind of took over and forced legislatures to shut down. Essentially, what we've been seeing over the last couple of years very prominently is African-American Black students and African-American Black professionals in the workplace being told that they have to go home, or that they can't attend class, or that they can't graduate for wearing hairstyles that are natural to us and wearing our hair in natural textures. Natural meaning the way the hair grows out of our head. Locks, braids, right? The way, like the locks that you have, braids and twists. And so we wanted to work to ensure that legislators pass protections that make it illegal to enforce that type of discrimination, because it's really just racism by proxy, right? No one else is wearing locks, braids, or twists but Black people. And so policies, whether it be workplace grooming policies or dress policies that explicitly name those hairstyles, by proxy discriminate against Black people.
Is that a good transition point, Michelle? I gotta pass the mic to Cecilia, because we need to hear from her. Cecilia.
I will continue on about the Crown Act, because I think it's very important. And as a friend and supporter of Shirley's Kitchen Cabinet and these efforts,
yes,
I think it's just very, very important. I think, we both are, Stephenie, and I think when we are talking about how Black women are able to show up in our fullness and our wholeness and in our power, why it is such a threat to people, a threat that says, no, you cannot do this. You must mimic what we are not in order to be successful, to be deemed appropriate, to be deemed all of these different types of things. And so the Crown Act is really important. We don't want it to get lost in this time of COVID-19 and the coronavirus. As we move forward in these things, when we come back to session, how dare anyone tell us that we are not beautiful, we are not gorgeous, we are not all the things that we are, as all the ways in which we come, right? And so this is not only about that someone must wear their hair natural. I've been natural for 25 years, since I was Phoenix's age. And I wear my hair straight sometimes, I wear my hair natural sometimes, I wear my hair braided, I wear my hair however I want to wear my hair, and all of those things are fine. And that is what we need to really move forward.
We have a quick question. It's just a quick answer, please. It's on the screen. Jalen asked, does it make sense for me to register to vote now, or should I wait until moving to that new state?
It depends on, sorry.
Go ahead.
It depends on the state's laws. So you want to check out the state that you're moving to.
That.
If you register at home, you would have to come back home to vote more than likely, or I have the option to vote absentee. It just depends on your state. So check with the Secretary of State's office for both states and figure out what would be the easiest route for you to go. And Cecilia, thank you for picking up the Crown Act. When we think about COVID and the disproportionate unemployment and kids being out of school, and those folks are going to have to be re-entering the workforce, business owners and the like. They don't need the added barrier of not getting a job or not being able to go back to school because of the way they wear their hair. That's just absurd.
Right. Ladies, we have the hard task of stopping this. We knew that 30 minutes would not be enough, but you have done enough to whet our appetites. Please, everyone who's viewing, check us out on Twitter. On Twitter. This conversation is continuing.
It is continuing.
Yes. You're going to be joining us on Twitter. Hashtag
Voters Make a Difference.
That's right.
After this, right now after this, with Dr. Lee from the MCC. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Use your voice. Use your power. Use your
voice.
Yes, vote, and beyond. There you go. Thank you, ladies.